Yo, what's up guys? So, 2 win conditions in one deck, and it's with something that I have never even thought about combining with Exodia. So, there's actually 2 different ways to win. One way is to loop all of your opponent's cards so they happen to have 0 cards, and then you could just attack them for game. But you can also win with Exodia in Fortune Ladies in 2020. It doesn't really need the new Master Rule, but for the sake of the video, I will call it Master Rule 2020 New Ban List Ready, because it does technically have some synergy because you don't have to clog up your zones if you want to go ahead and make other plays. So Ravenous Quasar, which is the new Crocodile Synchro over here, it gives you additional 2 draws. Now you can go for a lot of different things. The effect of the Quasar can only be used once per turn, but you could still go ahead and just make Trishula over and over again. So there's actually 2 different ways to win in this deck. You can Trishula your opponent until, again, they have 0 cards, which means you can just attack because they have nothing. And then you can also win by having Exodia. Now, usually you'll end up winning with Exodia, but you can still technically draw your entire deck. But the fact that you can still pull off this alternate win condition is just icing on the cake to make the deck look even better. And for those of you guys that might be thinking, oh, this deck gotta be super inconsistent, it's actually pretty consistent because you have like 3 different sets of cards that you just need to have 1 copy of plus another Fortune Lady, and you'll be able to pretty much completely go off. All you really need to do is go ahead and cycle Water over and over again, because Fortune Lady Water is one of those older cards that they just didn't think to put once per turn. I don't know if this card is going to get an errata, but I think that there's a lot of different ways to really utilize this card in Synchro, Desynchro variants. In fact, when I get to the deck profile, you'll see what maybe Stardust was building here, which was originally going to be a Quasar Fortune Lady deck. And I think that that's definitely possible, but I think we just did cover a triple Quasar build. If you guys haven't seen that, I'll pin it down below. But I would rather just FTK them. Summoning triple Quasars legitimately in 2020 sometimes just simply isn't enough. And even through 1 hand trap, you could still be a-okay with this deck. With 2 hand traps, your opponent might be able to disrupt you. It depends on how good you draw too, because in any Exodia deck, you don't want to draw the Exodia parts. In this duel, we drew every single card, but like I said before, you can still Trishula loop your opponent. You just Magical Stone Excavation, go for Desynchro, Resynchro, Trishula, and because Trishula just goes back in the extra deck, you don't even need that Pot of Avarice. Heck, if you really wanted to, you could probably throw that in here and get some additional draw power. Not that it's needed though, but it's just there to perhaps recycle some of the cards if you really wanted to. There's really nothing that is like very important, because most of the stuff you can use infinitely per turn anyways, and you want it in the graveyard for your Desynchro, Resynchro plays. But nonetheless, once again, it's kind of bread and butter, just summoning Water as many times as possible, going ahead and going for Desynchro plays, resynchroing up, and just going ahead and getting that Water's effect. It's just so OP. It's just draw 2 cards whenever it is special summon while you control a Fortune Lady monster except for itself. So you can just go ahead and kind of understand how it works. And when you Desynchro and Resynchro up, you're drawing 4 cards, plus you go into the Quasar, you draw another 2 cards. At that point, you've drawn 6 cards. At that point, all you need is a Desynchro or a Magical Stone Excavation to go ahead and reset, and then draw an additional 4 cards. And then also remember, if you still happen to get unlucky or they hand trap you, and depending on how many times you Trishula, you can still technically win. Now, this one over here does show off a small little misplay here, but you can still see that it can still win the game because, well, the deck can play through, like I said, I would say on average, maybe 1, depending again how good your hand is. Like I said, you don't want to draw the Exodia parts, just like in most Exodia decks, early on in the duel, but pretty much it's kind of going to be repeats over here, but I will give you guys a deck profile and I'll kind of explain certain things and what you kind of need to get the combo started. But pretty much it's just another Fortune Lady and being able to go ahead and get that proc effect of light to go right into Water. Although the other card, the Fortune Lady Pass, does let you just go ahead and have that ability to go banish a monster, and then you can reset with a lot of the other cards. And like I said, I know it's kind of fast, so I will go over some of the full effects just in case some of you guys are new to Fortune Ladies, because I have not seen anyone play Fortune Ladies in a really long time, but again, they have some of the best boss power, draw power in the game. The boss monster, there's a new boss synchro, but it doesn't really matter. Look at this disrespect over here. We activated the Gold Moon coin, and we're giving our opponent 2 extra cards, and then you also do technically draw 2 cards of it. It's kind of a troll card though, because you are giving your opponent cards at the end of the day, but even with that, giving our opponent extra cards, we're a-okay on it. But like I mentioned before, I believe it was in the second duel with the Magical Stone Excavation in the hand, and there's another desynchro. You can still loop your opponent again for every single card. I forgot to mention it during the second duel, but it was definitely there. But again, you're gonna win with Exodia. You can't like stop Exodia. Once Exodia goes off, your opponent cannot respond, and you actually, in fact, there's an interesting fact with Exodia here. Did you guys know that you guys can't actually hold Exodia in your hand and reveal it at any time? You actually must state that you instantly win the game. Because I think a one troll thing that some people might want to do is hold all the cards, and then when your opponent attacks for game, you reveal the Exodia for a prank, but you actually have to have that happen immediately. So again, with the whole Trishula thing, even though it's like unnecessary icing on the cake, if you want to loop all 5 cards, it's possible, but if you do draw all the Exodia parts, you do have to claim that you are already the victor anyways. But let's go ahead and hop right into the deck profile for, of course, the Exodia Fortune Lady deck. It is a 40 card deck. There's just, of course, the 2020 Master Rule card that you have to put in your deck so it can function properly in Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So first off, all of the 5 pieces of Exodia. Next up, we are playing 2 copies of Fortune Lady Dark. This is actually a draw power card that we're actually utilizing with Allure of Darkness. Now, when you activate Allure of Darkness, it banishes the card. That's actually not a bad thing because you're going to actually reset the card later down the line with Fortune's Future. So you target one of your banished Fortune Lady monsters, return it to the graveyard, then you draw 2 cards. So there's really no downside with Allure of Darkness at all. And sometimes you need to actually have that dark target, obviously, for Allure. You also have Fortune Lady Pass technically as another target, but for the most part, this is the card that you want to go ahead and get rid of. Next up, the card that makes everything function properly is Fortune Lady Water. So Fortune Lady Water, all the Fortune Ladies gain attack. I'm not really going over that effect. Dark actually has another effect where if a face-up Fortune Lady monster you control destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you dispose summon another Fortune Lady monster from your graveyard, which is always going to go ahead and be water. But again, this is an FTK deck, so this probably won't come up. But in the off chance that it does happen, let's say you Trishula loop your opponent, but they use like a hand trap, they stop your play, they might have like set 1 monster pass, and at that point, Fortune Lady Dark, you destroy something, and then you go ahead and summon water, draw 2 cards, and then finish off your combo the next turn. With Fortune Lady Light over here, it does have that ability, and actually, you know what, going second with this deck, if your opponent happens to have a monster you can run over it, you can maybe get this effect. Again, it probably won't be coming up, but it can. Fortune Lady Light is one of the key cards that you're going to be needing for this combo. So this has the effect of when this face-up card leaves the field by a card effect, which is by yours or your opponent's, you just push summon 1 Fortune Lady monster from your deck. 99% of the time, it's going to be water, so you can go ahead and start your combo. The idea is to get double waters into the graveyard, and then just start desynchroing, resynchroning over and over again. And then with Fortune Lady Pass, this has the effect where you get to target a Fortune Lady monster you control, banish any number of other spellcasters from your hand, field, and or graveyard, and if you do, you get to increase or reduce that monster's level by the number of monsters banished until the end of this turn. It's really not used too many times for the increase effect, but a lot of times it can come up to make that Stardust Charge Warrior, depending on the level, and then from there you just recycle it and keep on going for Fortune Lady Water. Then we have Allure of Darkness. This card's self-explanatory. Banish a dark, draw 2. You draw 2 cards, then banish a dark. And then with Spellbook of Knowledge, this is a card where you can only activate one of them once per turn. So when you have these excess cards, these are the cards that you want to get rid of after you've already activated their effects with Magical Stone activation. So Spellbook of Knowledge will be one of those cards. Once you go through one, the other one is completely useless. And then next up, we have 3 copies of Fortune Lady Calling. So if you control Fortune Lady monster, you get to special summon another Fortune Lady. Usually it's just special summon water, obviously draw 2 cards. And then you could only special summon synchro monsters for the rest of the turn, so keep that in mind as well, but it doesn't really matter. You're gonna win anyways. You can see there was a goal over here, I think, to make a Blazar Quasar variant, and then he's just like, well, I can just Exodia FTK, why not get the win off? But if you guys want to make a Quasar deck, I have one I recently uploaded. It was by Stardust once again, so shout outs to you, man. I'll link him down below also. Great Yu-Gi-Oh content creator here in the community. But yeah, Fortune Lady Calling is another one of those once per turn. So once again, use your Magical Stone Excavation on this card, or you can give them this card because they're not going to be able to use this at all. And then desynchro, obviously desynchro, resynchroing up. This card actually adds a lot to the deck because, again, if you think about it, when you already probably special summon 1 or 2 water, but even if you don't, you're drawing 6 cards off of the desynchro after you go ahead and make Quasar. this card will draw 2 cards, and then on top of that, you'll draw another 4 cards with a double water. So you're drawing 6 cards with the addition of this card versus just drawing 4. It really does help out quite a bit. It's another once per turn, but it doesn't really matter anyways. The Gold Moon coin, again, it does technically offer some draw power here that's more consistent. Just remember, give your opponent the cards that you've already activated, because there are some cards that are once per turns. And then with Fortune's Future, this card is another draw power card. And Reborn, obviously you're Reborn in water most of the time. Sometimes you might need to bring Lady Pass back in case it gets disrupted. And then we do happen to have 3 Magical Stone to add back your Desynchro. Or you can add back another card that just gives you draw power to add Desynchro. But usually it's Desynchro, because Desynchro will let you draw 4 cards. While if you go ahead and use Magical Stone Excavation on another spell, you might just be drawing 2. So keep that in mind. This card is always more valuable than adding back like another draw power card, because most of the other ones just let you go through 2. And then with Fortune's Visions over here, this card lets you add any Fortune Lady card from your deck to your hand. So pretty much this card and this card will let you just go ahead and go straight for anything, which really help out with whatever key card that you really need to get your combo started. The DDR is just to bring back a water that you banish potentially, or you can recycle a lot of other things as well, but that's pretty much just to bring back one of the other cards. And then we have the Overdone Boreal, which is another card that lets you go ahead and bring back another monster for your Desynchro and Resynchro plays. More so, I guess, for disruption than anything. If you Reborn, then get rid of one of your other targets, you can go ahead and go for it. But as far as the extra deck, the things that are important over here, honestly, the most important things are the Stardust Charge War, the Crocosaur, Trishula, obviously. You only need 1, and you could keep on using it, because remember, even though you only have 3 copies of Desynchro, you have 3 copies of Magical Stone Activation to go ahead and add back your Desynchro. That's how you loop your opponent for all 5 cards in their hand. But again, most of the time, like you guys saw in, I believe it was second duel, you're going to end up drawing Exodia 99% of the time before you can loop all of your opponent's cards, but it can come up, might as well utilize it. And then we also technically have like Librarian. I mean, if you know you're playing against a Synchro deck and you get stopped halfway through your combo, making this and passing is much better than, like, you know, most of the other options, because leaving your Fortune Ladies up on the board, while they do start getting extra attack every standby phase, it's not realistic anyways. And then you start ruining the levels, and then you have problems with going for stuff in the extra deck. But this is pretty much what is, I would consider, the key cards here. I mean, technically you could throw this in here if you wanted to go ahead and utilize it, and maybe you can go for like a Black Rose on your opponent's turn if you wanted to go ahead and kind of mess around with the extra deck. But there's definitely a lot of more rooms for improvement. I would throw in the Nightmare cards. You could probably throw in some Borrelsword, Borreload. You can throw in a lot of cards just to help out your matchups, if in case you guys want to take this deck a little bit more seriously. At the end of the day, it's kind of a cheesy deck, but again, it does technically have 2 win conditions, which is the Trishula as well as the Exodia. So you have a loop win condition, you have an instant win condition. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, drop a like on it. If you are new here, hit subscribe, turn that bell so you don't miss out on crazy decks like the 2020 Exodia Fortune Lady deck. And that's wild, man. But if you guys want to send in other replays, just like my boy Stardust Yugioh, feel free to send into AzneyesReplays@gmail.com. I love seeing what you guys make in the community. And thanks again, Stardust Yugioh, for hooking me up with the deck profile as well as the deck. But thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you in the next video. Have a good one, and I'm signing out. Peace.